Hey everyone, Thanksgiving is finally upon us. I'm sure that many of us are very excited to eat, to have time off of work, to spend time with family, but let's face it, Thanksgivings can get kind of awkward, especially when you have relatives who don't share your same political opinions, who make it very known to you that they don't share your political opinions, or who are just generally downright surly and rude. And so as I was thinking about what I would do this Thanksgiving for my timeless episode, I wanted to give you something really useful. I was thinking about maybe doing like the authentic history of Thanksgiving or giving you some recipe ideas. But then I realized that nothing could be more useful to you than my giving you my tips accumulated through years of experience of how to make your Thanksgivings a little less awkward. I'm Julie Hartman, and this is Timeless. Hey everyone, and welcome to Timeless, and also happy Thanksgiving. Even though today we'll be talking about the cringy moments during Thanksgiving dinner, let's face it, Thanksgiving is a lovely, joyous holiday where you can eat whatever you want without any kind of guilt, and I will definitely be taking advantage of that. Thank you so much for joining me. As a reminder, please hit the subscribe button down below so that you can stay notified with all of the new content that I post. In addition to Timeless, also on this channel, we have my show with Dennis Prager called Dennis and Julie. That is every Monday. And then Timeless is Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. It's been a pretty big and varied week on Timeless. I encourage you to check out the earlier episodes this week. I talked about the rise of Islamofascism with Brandon Weichert, who is one of the smartest geopolitical analysts I've ever met. Then yesterday, on the 60th anniversary of the JFK assassination, I interviewed Gerald Posner and talked to him about various facts and conspiracy theories with regard to that event. But you know what? Those are two pretty heavy subjects, so I thought I would keep it kind of light today. But as I said in the introduction, it is also incredibly useful because we've all been there. I just also want to make a quick note that it sounds like maybe I'm kind of subtweeting people right now by alluding to this awkwardness. I just want to say for the record, I have a lovely family. I love my family. I'm not going to make this episode about me or some dynamics that may exist at my own Thanksgiving table. But let's face it, we've all been in those moments at Thanksgiving, at other dinners, and it's kind of been something that I've really had to get used to in my life, honestly, doing this job. When you grow up in Los Angeles, go to liberal schools, are in very liberal environments, have mostly liberal relatives and friends, and you start a show with Dennis Prager and you launch your own podcast, which talks a lot about conservative perspectives on issues, you get very used to avoiding awkwardness or knowing how to deal with awkwardness with those people who disagree with you. So I feel like I'm kind of a master at it. I could teach a master class. And today, you're going to get my abbreviated version. So I'm going to divide this episode into kind of three categories. And these are all my suggestions for making your Thanksgiving as pleasant as possible. The first thing I'm going to talk about are games, because that is a huge way to avoid political conversation and also develop camaraderie with the people at the table and maybe inspire some goodwill between you and your radical left-wing relative. The second category, the first one is games. The second one is bland conversation topics. And you can go on the internet and look up bland conversation topics, and you will get millions of articles. In preparation for this episode, I decided to do some research myself. But honestly, a lot of them suck. And they just give you these truly bland things that are just too bland, like talk about traffic. Okay, how are you going to talk about traffic besides lamenting its existence? So I have come up with more specific questions that are specifically tailored to be outside of the realm of politics. And then the third kind of general category that I'm going to discussing is what I call general advice. And there are many prongs of that. that are kind of disparate, not particularly unified, but just some tips to be aware of as you are at the Thanksgiving dinner table. Before we dive into that, I just want to kind of spend a moment analyzing something that I think people both on the left and on the right of the political aisle in the United States would agree on. And that is that things have gotten worse. We used to be able to sit at a dinner table, a Thanksgiving table, with people with whom we vehemently disagree. And we as Americans generally had the class and the sophistication to avoid certain subjects, or if certain subjects came up, to be able to handle them in a dignified way and not go to pieces and freak out when someone brings something up that you deem to be an absurd opinion. But as a country, we've just lost our manners. And what we see is that in addition to losing our manners, people are being rewarded and exalted and praised for having a fit when they see a point of view that they disagree with. I mean, I did a show on this about how Maxine Waters gave this speech, like, if you see a member of the Trump administration in public, get in their faces, get loud, make them feel unwelcome. You see that a lot of times if there's a student that, is protesting, or if there are people who are standing up to bigotry in a loud way, they are deemed as truth tellers and as crusaders for a good cause. And that is just so absurd. And it's trickled down to even these family moments where if you don't stand up to your relative at the dinner table who has a differing opinion, you're letting bigotry manifest. That is just so absurd and generally sad, and I think has contributed to a lot of this malaise. And another thing is that so many topics now have become inherently political. Like, one of the suggestions that I was coming up with in anticipation of this episode was to encourage people to talk about the British royal family, because they're so, frankly, like, boring, a lot of them. Kate Middleton is one of my idols, but she's very boring, and that's kind of by design. And I thought, that'd be a really good topic, because you can't get political with the royal family. But the problem is, nowadays, the royal family is so political, because of Harry and Meghan and their whole exit calling the royal family racist, but also people with these subjects, like, they'll bring up, maybe a monarchy shouldn't exist. Maybe a monarchy is a patriarchal and antiquated institution. It's just like so many subjects now, political things can be read into them. If you want to talk about cars, when your car lease expires and you want to get a new car, what kind of car would you want to get? That inherently is political, because people can now cut in and go, well, you really shouldn't get a gas guzzler. We should all be moving towards green alternatives. It's just like, my God, can we just give it a break sometimes? So that is just to say, I get your pain. If you are in those moments with relatives and friends at the Thanksgiving dinner table, it's just become universal, these dynamics of manners and everything being politicized. So let's kick it off here, and I'm going to start off with games. This has been something that I have learned through many, many years of experience, and that is you need to have games at the ready before your big Thanksgiving dinner table starts. Do not wait until your aunt and your grandma are yelling at each other about George Floyd's autopsy to realize that you need to go upstairs and pull together a game. You've got to have that stuff right there, literally at the table or on a bench or in the next room. And so the second they're talking about abortion or something, you go, okay, now is a really good time to play a family game. Have it prepared. And here are some games that are really good. Again, this is an easy way to create goodwill, because if your, leftist father-in-law makes a good play on the game or comes up with a clever line, you can compliment him and you can create some kind of goodwill between you two, because he will appreciate that you complimented him on the game. It's kind of, again, a brilliant way to distract people, to let time pass, and to act like you're all a happy family, even if there is this seething political tension below the surface. One of the best games ever for this is Scattergories. You can go online, buy a Scattergories game. Very easy to do so. Will be delivered to you tomorrow. But honestly, you don't even need to do that. Just go online, and they have templates online that you can print out. For those who don't know, Scattergories is a game where you are given like 10 categories. Flavor of ice cream, a type of flower, an item that you often lose. And then you have a letter that you pick. So let's say it's A. You have to, in about a minute, give an answer to the categories, and all of them have to start with the letter A. So what was the first thing I said? Ice cream flavor, then you would say almond. Or items that you lose. I don't know. What is an A starting item that you lose? It's hard. And when you're doing it for a minute, it gets all the more tricky. And then you add up all these points later, and whoever wins, wins. But you know what's great about that game? It wastes time. You have like 10 different games, each a minute. You can even extend it to a minute and a half or 2 minutes. And a lot of it is silent. People are filling out their categories. And then you have to discuss it after, because if you have an answer that overlaps with someone else, for instance, if you say almond as an ice cream flavor and your sister says almond as an ice cream flavor, you both are disqualified. So that wastes more time as you're trying to add up the points and sort out the rules of the game. Scattergories is great, but again, print it out and have it ready before so that you can just yank it when things get weird. That's game number 1. Game number 2, 2 truths and a lie. Super easy. How can that get political? I guess someone could say, like, as one of their truths or one of their lies, I went to a Black Lives Matter protest. Like, obviously there's some room for it to get political, but it's really pretty easy to avoid that with 2 truths and a lie. Apple toss. This is a good game. If you have bins, if you have even a trash bin, set it up, make it look pretty, put some cloth over it, get a bunch of apples, and again, just make it fun. Set up prizes. The person who gets the most apples in the bin gets the first, helping of stuffing, or gets some kind of gift card to their favorite store. Just find a way to make it fun, and it's all about unity and inspiring goodwill with your relatives and other people who may be at the dinner. So, Scattergories, 2 truths and a lie, apple toss, heads up. Thanksgiving edition is really good. This is just stuff that you make at home. You can write down Thanksgiving themed stuff. Heads up is the game where you put a word on your head and you have a minute and everyone else is yelling at you, but they can't tell you what the word is. They have to describe the word and then you switch. And it's just, the point is just to make people laugh. And again, waste time. And then the final game that I have written down here is actually something that Sean told me about. And I have to admit, I had never heard of it, but it sounds fun. It's called Balderdash. Maybe I'm the only person on the face of the earth who has never heard of this game. But apparently it's like you have a word and you have to come up with the definition of the word. Is that right? Sounds fun. And then you guess on what is the right definition. Sounds pretty brainy to me. Sounds kind of scholarly, but hey, again, whatever works. Whatever keeps you away from those other topics. And then another game, of course, that I think you should always have at the ready is a drinking game. And by a drinking game, I don't necessarily mean one with the entire table. I mean one that you can partake in with your ally at the table. I remember doing this, not at Thanksgiving, with a friend. We were at this dinner for one of our classes. We had a kind of like end of the semester dinner, and everyone in our class was super weird and bizarre. And my friend and I were like, oh my gosh, how are we going to get through this dinner? And so the two of us came up with a drinking game, and we set the rules before the dinner, where we're like, every time this weird guy says this, or someone drops a fork, we're going to take a sip. And it's just a fun way, especially if things are getting really absurd and you have a relative who like just goes out of their way to make everything political and the dinner is just inherently uncomfortable. It is so fun to have your ally and just make make fun of it through your drinking games. So categories, two truths and a lie, apple toss, heads up Thanksgiving edition, balderdash, whatever the hell that is, and your drinking game. Have alcohol ready. Buy it in bulk. Have your games ready and have your alcohol ready. That's the Julie Hartman 2 most important tips. Now moving on to bland conversation topics. This is very important. Again, when people suggest traffic or food or weather, I get that those are the quintessential, boring, bland conversation topics, but they only last 5 seconds. Like, how can you really sustain a conversation about the weather? Maybe you can do it. I can't. I just run out of things to think about. So here are some that I have come up with. And by the way, shameless plug for this show. I think a lot of shows, the subjects that I have done shows on, would make really, really good conversation topics for Thanksgiving. And by the way, that is in part by design. Now, when I come up with a topic on this show, I'm not thinking this would be a really good, bland conversation topic for a Thanksgiving dinner, but I am thinking in terms of, I like profiling topics that are non-political. Because as I have talked about on this show many times, and as I open this episode with, we as a country have gotten too damn political. We don't know how to talk about other things or relate to each other on other things besides our shared political opinions. And so every show that I do, hopefully they're not bland topics, hopefully they're, intensely fascinating topics, but they are specifically with the design to get us away from politics and explore all of these other fantastic and very interesting realms of life that we may not be aware of. And so I've done shows on weddings. That would be a really good conversation topic. Again, there's always opportunity for people to make it political. Weddings are a patriarchal ceremony of tradition, which means nothing. Like, okay, at that point, you can't do anything to control those people besides drink with your ally every time they make a moment political. But weddings, that's a very, very fruitful conversation. A lot of avenues that you can go down. And again, shameless plug, watch my show. I talked about the ways that certain traditions have changed. For instance, a lot of religious leaders are no longer officiating as many weddings as they used to. Now you have friends officiating. You can get ordained online and officiate your friend's wedding. I talked about how fewer brides are wearing white wedding dresses. Some people are doing some kind of funky alternative dresses. Bridesmaids and groomsmen are changing. A lot of weddings, people do these, I think, kind of extra, but also really cute, like, decorations where they, for instance, they have cocktail napkins with like fun facts about the bride and the groom, and just like ask the dinner table this and just be like, what weddings have you been to that really touched you? What were some things that wedding did differently that you thought were kind of cool? Do you think the string light kind of like vibe has been overdone? What would be a good alternative to that? What do you think makes a good wedding speech? Should you keep speeches at 5 minutes? Should you only have the best friend or the father of the bride do it? Like, literally just come up with a bunch of questions and ask, and hopefully it will facilitate something interesting. Before we continue, I want to tell you about MyPillow. I use many MyPillow products, including the My Slippers, which I wear to work every day, the Giza Dream bed sheets, the MyPillow, the My Towels, and even more. And you can get many of those products at a discount if you use the promo code Hartman, which is my last name spelled Hartman. For a limited time, you'll get 60% off of the Giza Dream sheets that comes with a 60-day money-back guarantee and a 10-year warranty. You'll get a set for as low as $39.99. And for a limited time, with any purchase, you'll receive Mike's softcover book free with the promo code Hartman. Just go to mypillow.com and click on the radio listener square and use the promo code Hartman, or call 1-800-566-6745 and use the promo code Hartman. Along with this offer, you'll get deep discounts on all MyPillow products, including the MyPillow mattress topper, the aforementioned MyPillow towel sets, and more. Another show I did was on how advertising has changed. That was a really cool show. And I went through a bunch of different commercials about, cigarettes, cars, and talked about how not only technologically things have changed, but the kind of messaging and vibe has changed. One of the things that I observed is that what advertising used to do was really primarily impart to you the merits of the product. And now what advertising tries to do is something memorable and punchy and kind of sarcastic, like the E-Trade talking baby. When you watch an E-Trade commercial and you see that like baby boy talking to you, do you learn anything about E-Trade? No. The point is to make you laugh and to have you remember the talking baby, and then maybe from there, I don't know, decide to do business with E-Trade. But again, ask questions about that. Be like, how do you think advertising has changed? What are some commercials that you think are particularly effective and why? What are some of the most absurd commercials? So many avenues that you can go down with that. Oh, another episode I did, and I will get to things that aren't just timeless episodes, but again, shameless plug. Recently, I interviewed a professor, Kathy Yandel, about a book that she wrote called The French Art of Living Well. Finding joie de vivre, and Sean's going to laugh because he thinks that I say that incorrectly. She told me on air that it was good, so I'm going to go with it. Finding joie de vivre in your everyday life. Basically, the interview was how to live like a French person, because we can all agree, left, right, the French just seem to enjoy life more than Americans. They're outside, they're drinking a glass of wine, they've got a cigarette, they've got a hot guy or a hot girl next to them. They take a lot of time to enjoy things, to read books. That's a good conversation topic. Ask people at the table, why do you think it is that the French seem to have this joie de vivre more than Americans do? What other countries have you been to where you observe maybe people do things differently in a good or a bad way compared to America? Again, I'm hearing in my head ways that this could be made political, but at a certain point, you just kind of have to go with it. So besides my timeless episodes, here are some other ones that I have come up with and that I have seen work in my experience in my life when I need to avoid talking about my show with Dennis Prager. Homes for sale. You could go online, bring a computer at the table even, and look up in a certain neighborhood on Zillow, homes for sale, and put the price bracket really up. See some mansions, do 90210 and make your bracket between $15 million and $30 million and talk about them. Pretend like you're that rich person. What amenities would you want in your home? There was an article recently, I think in Vogue, or maybe it was Vanity Fair, like 5 amenities that every rich person is really wanting in their house right now. And one of them was a back staircase. Another one was a sauna. Another one was a, oh gosh, I'm going to butcher the name, but kind of like a driveway underpass where your car is not necessarily underground, but under a kind of structure so that if it rains, your car doesn't get rained on. Stuff like that. What if you were designing your home from scratch, what would be the amenities that you would really, really want? Also, what kind of design of a home appeals to you? Are you modern? Are you traditional? Are you Spanish? Are you... I don't really know the other categories of homes. I'm forgetting. Would you rather have an amazing apartment on the 15th story of a building with a great view or a massive house secluded in the mountains? Just keep asking follow-up questions. The more detail, the more tangents, the better. Another great topic. What are some of the stupidest things which have turned out to be successful? The Kardashians are one of them. That could lead in a lot of directions. And again, it's an opportunity to agree with someone at the table if they make a good point, if you otherwise wouldn't agree with them or you otherwise have a kind of contentious or uncomfortable relationship with them because of your politics. If your great uncle makes a great point about why people are fascinated with the Kardashians, you get brownie points for voicing that uncle made a really good point. So facilitate those kinds of conversations. But seriously, it is kind of fascinating to contemplate. How has this family made it? They haven't just made it like monetarily. They are so famous. They started with a reality show. They have gone into almost every industry. Tequila, Kendall Jenner's tequila company. Kim has Skims. Kylie has the lip kit. What's her name? Chloe has the jeans. I'm probably forgetting another sister. Courtney has Poosh, the lifestyle brand, and they all are massively successful. How have they done it? Kris Jenner, the mastermind. How did she pull that off? Do we think there's some residual fascination because of Robert Kardashian, the father, representing O.J. Simpson? Are they writing off of the coattails of that? Was it Kim's tape that I'm not going to be more specific about that generated that kind of fascination with them? Is it that they have this large family and you can find one person in the family who you always relate to? Just keep asking follow-up questions. I'll give you another, I guess, invention that some people would say would strike you as stupid or as not useful until it was, and it became a huge success. Snapchat. Or social media in general. Imagine if you could go back 20 years and tell people that an app where you take quick photos, you can put dog ears on your head and send it in 5 seconds to one of your friends would be a multi-billion-dollar enormous success that nearly everyone in the world would use. People would look at you like you were crazy. So what are some of those inventions that have shocked the world? And what do you think is the next invention that could possibly be similar? Masterclass. I mentioned that I could give a masterclass, as I am giving today, on how to make dinners, conversations, moments a little less awkward, diffuse and deflect. Why don't you ask your people at the table? If you were approached by Masterclass, the entity, and they offered to give you $5 million to teach a masterclass, what do you think you would teach yours on? Probably some people would say social justice theory, but you can make rules. You can't have any political answer. Something non-political that you would teach a master class on. This one is a classic, but honestly, I always love it. If you could invite 3 people who are dead to a dinner party and have dinner with them, who would you invite? And you know what? You can lead by example and talk about if you especially don't want the conversation to be political, you can say, I will go first. I would love to have Marilyn Monroe to ask her about her beauty secrets. I would love to have, I don't know, well, I guess, I was going to say Napoleon, but I guess that's pretty political. But just lead by example, set the table. That, I think, could be a really fun one. Airline travel. This one is so universal. Everyone hates flying on a plane. Everyone agrees that you are treated like a second-class citizen at best. Everyone has the stories of being next to the guy who spills ketchup on himself and on you, and you have the delay and all this stuff. Sit, commiserate together, and talk about how you would change things. What would you do if you were head of Delta Airlines? How would you get people to come to your airline while also making money? What if you were the head of TSA? How would you change the way that we do airport security? What if you ran an airport? If you owned an airport, what kind of stores would you put in that airport that people really want? I've seen this in some airports, though I think it's kind of a missed opportunity. They should have more nail salons in airports. If you have a delay, or if you are like me and my family and show up to the airport 3 hours early and you need a mani-pedi, that is a great opportunity to do that. Think of business opportunities with regard to airline travel. That will definitely sustain you for at least an hour. You can talk about various hotels. What makes a good hotel? What makes a good Airbnb? Would you rather stay at a smaller, cool, funky boutique hotel that's kind of off the radar and no one really knows about, but it feels very cozy? Or would you rather stay at like a Four Seasons, Ritz-Carlton, Marriott, these big, massive hotels where you feel more anonymous and that things are kind of more scheduled and more systemized? Again, just trying here. Anything besides those uncomfortable topics. And then finally here, I have the category called rip-offs. This is something I discovered the other day. I was at a grocery store where they have pre-made food. And they had steak, which was, I don't know, like $15 a pound, probably more. I'm probably getting that wrong, or $15 for however many ounces. And then they had vegetables like carrots or green beans that were significantly less money, you know, $4 a pound or $4 for however many ounces. You get my point. And I was watching. I got steak and I got carrots. And they put the steak and the carrots on in the same tray, if you will, or in the same bowl. And I went to go check out, and I realized that the cash register weighed my bowl and then charged me the price per pound or per ounce for the steak and not for the carrots, even though it was half steak, half carrots. And I realized in that moment that I had been scammed. A universal thing. Airline travel sucks. Being scammed sucks. Commiserate, build camaraderie, talk about ways that you have been scammed, and if you were designing the world from scratch, how you would redo it. I actually am just kidding. I told you that was the last thing, but I have one more. Why are so many dictators short? Just a question. A lot of cool theories could come out of it. Allow me to provide some examples. Napoleon was 5'6". Mussolini was 5'6". Stalin was 5'5". Lenin was 5'5". Francisco Franco was 5'4". Nikita Khrushchev was 5'3". Mao Zedong was believed to have been 5'2". And then Kim Jong-un, we don't have a specific number, but he is around 5 feet. Is there something there, perhaps? A theory that you can come up with? Why do taller presidential candidates in the United States tend to win over shorter presidential candidates? I don't know. Food for thought. Now, if things are getting really bad and people at the table just literally cannot help themselves, they have to make everything political. That is kind of what I call the F it moment, where things are just so descending and they are getting so uncomfortable that no amount of effort that you can put in will change the course. And so maybe you just need to make the whole dinner truly absurd. That is one of the pieces of advice that I have, which is if things are getting really bad, I think sometimes we all tend to want to cut in and fix it and try to diffuse the situation. But there is a certain point where that doesn't work, and you need to pretend like you are in an SNL comedy sketch and just make fun of it. Like, just have this kind of game with yourself where you are laughing. And maybe you just need to ask some absurd questions like, have you ever seen a 4-leaf clover? As Barbara Walters said, what kind of tree would you be if you were a tree? Let's play that clip. She asked Katharine Hepburn this literally on the air. It's hilarious.
What kind of a tree are you? If you think you're a tree now.
I hope I'm not an elm with Dutch elm disease. I don't know.
Sometimes it literally gets to that point where what kind of animal would you be if you were an animal? At a certain point, just have fun with yourself. Try to salvage it for your own sake, even if the whole table is going to hell. And now on to the third category before I bid you adieu is general advice. So now we know games, have them there, have the alcohol, don't wait, have it in stock. Then we have the bland or non-political conversation topics, of which my show Timeless with Julie Hartman may be a good resource. And then now general advice. So yes, I'm encouraging you to have alcohol at the ready, but one of the things that is really important at these dinners is to not overdrink or to not overserve people, because naturally you get more feisty, you get more bold, you get more combative. Try to, even if you need to keep a secret stash for yourself, try to limit it for everyone at the table. Over drinking is the cause of so many fights. As I said, try to make it fun and funny to you. If something goes really awry, pretend like you're in a movie, pretend like you're in a comedy sketch. Do a journal entry after of how things got so uncomfortable or so absurd so fast, and maybe one day it will be useful to you in a speech that you give, or if you decide to become a comedy writer. Just don't view the whole dinner as a catastrophe. Just view it as partially fun. Also, another piece of advice is that this is a moment in time. You know, like, you may not have all of your relatives or your friends at the dinner table all in one group again. And again, if things get uncomfortable or if people bring up subjects or if someone is rude, I think that we all have to remember that we control the way that we react. And this show is just as relevant for non-Thanksgiving dinners and meals as it is for Thanksgiving, though, of course. I'm doing it today because A, it's Thanksgiving, and B, because Thanksgiving is one of those holidays where you tend to have kind of a hodgepodge of people. But we get to control how we react to certain people in certain situations. And I think we can zoom out, realize that this is a great moment in time, and try to see the forest through the uncomfortable trees. Fourth kind of tidbit is analyzing why people are so weird. If you have someone at the table who's just being downright odd, again, instead of trying to change them or like necessarily wave your magic wand and save the whole dinner, make it a game for yourself and figure out what is it about that person that is making them behave in this way. Why are they surly? Are they insecure? Are they uncomfortable? Why do they need to constantly bring up politics? Is that how they find meaning in their lives? Do a kind of psychoanalysis of them, and then maybe you can talk about it afterwards with one of your allies at the table. But don't just let the moment descend into the depths of discomfort. Get something useful, whether it's a comedy sketch or a psychoanalytical takeaway from it. Subvert the idea that other people have of you. This is a huge, huge thing that I have taken away. I know sometimes when I'm at dinner and something comes up, whether it's about Trump or the border or vaccines or something, I know that people at the table are expecting me to jump in and give my opinion. And I know they're expecting me to jump in and give a conservative opinion. And it's really, really powerful when you as an individual subvert the stereotype or the expectation that other people have of you. That's not to say if you're conservative, pretend like you're liberal, or if you're liberal, pretend like you're conservative. But if you kind of know that there's this vibe or this expectation of a way that you might react or something that you might say, do your best to go in the other direction. It will not only be kind of fun for you to see the way that other people react, but I think it will make an impression on those people at the table. And then finally, at the risk of sounding corny, there's a definition of manners that I came across that I think is the best ever. And that is that manners, the definition of manners is making other people feel comfortable. And especially at a Thanksgiving, if you have older relatives, if you have other people who are doing the work, you didn't cook, you're just kind of along for the ride, or even if you did cook and you have all your family members around you, remember that this is a gathering of which there are many people, and it's not just all about you. And even if someone is rude to you or something goes awry, for the general good of the table, be gracious about it. Because again, manners are about making other people feel comfortable. And I think it'll make a huge impression on the co-eaters at your table if you handle uncomfortable or bad moments with a kind of grace and dignity for the greater good of the event. That's my 2 cents, my friends. I hope that you have a lovely Thanksgiving. I hope that some of this was useful to you, not just for today, but any other day. And joy, 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 I wish all of you. And of course, there's a lot to be grateful for, even though our country has a lot of bad things going on, which I chronicle and talk about a lot on this show. We should never forget how staggeringly lucky we are and how staggeringly grateful we should be to be an American and have kind of gatherings like this. See you soon. Take care.